Hello, my name is Karen Theel, and I'm Senior Director of eBusiness Suite Manufacturing Strategy. Today we're going to talk about analytics-driven manufacturing, gaining visibility and intelligence in a modern digital factory. This is a presentation that was originally presented to OAUG back in April of 2014. This is our safe harbor statement. I'll be talking about future direction, and I really just want to highlight that anything that we say here could change in the future and cannot be included in any contract. So today's agenda, why do we need a modern digital factory, will be our first topic. We'll go into Oracle's solution overview. We'll look at transactions that focus on the solution, also analytics that focus on our solution, and then we'll have a summary of the presentation. So this is one of the key things that we hear from our customers on a day-to-day basis. How do I get more visibility to what's going on in my shop floor? In fact, this is a quote from Accenture that managers spend up to 2 hours each day searching for information, and more than 50% of that information really has no value to them. So what do we do in a world where most of the information that we have is practically useless? So we want to make sure that we can provide tools for our manufacturing facilities that deliver some real business value to the shop floors. So our companies today are really dealing with a lot of challenges. Oftentimes they have this whiteboard that you see in the picture on the left-hand side, which is their schedule. So how do they actually collaborate then? How do they synchronize and communicate between the planning department and the manufacturing department? It's really a big issue in our facilities throughout the world. So what we propose is moving to an automatic exchange of information via a tool like our MES workstation or MOC solutions, where we have an electronic workbench where the operators go in and they perform specific actions based on the dispatch list. It's synchronized to any planning and scheduling system, so all the changes are made real time, and the workers can see the latest instructions and quality measurements that are required of them. Another problem in our shop floor is the delay through manual entries. When we post manually, we don't have visibility on a real-time basis to what's happening in the shop floor. So we really need to have early alerts to any issues that are occurring. We want to correct these issues on a real-time basis and make adjustments either to resources and materials based on the quality that we're seeing coming out of the production process. So what our new modern digital factory would look like would be easy to use dashboards. We would have shop floor supervisors using electronic workbenches to track jobs, to impact jobs on a real-time basis. There would be push alerts whenever there's a problem on the shop floor, and we'd be able to review the risks that are inherent to the production process. And ultimately, we want to use our tools like an iPad, a tablet, or even like a workbench that's in a workstation out on the shop floor to enter data and then review the current information. So lots of complexity occurs on the shop floor, lots of paper, lots of information overload. There's also an issue with structured, meaning data that is values that you can actually collect in a field on a form versus unstructured data, the data that somebody just types in, maybe for a deviation or a defect that occurred in the manufacturing process. We have to validate data. In some industries, 21 CFR Part 11 requires somebody to sign off that they performed a particular task. We need to understand the value of the data, the contextualization, and we want to make sure that we collaborate but also have security around that so the proper people are entering the data and viewing the data. Many industries there's secret formulations or secret recipes that we can't allow everyone to see. So going forward in our modern digital factory, we want to be able to have the supervisor have complete visibility to what's going on the shop floor, but just not in a report format. We want to have role-based dashboards. We want to have KPIs that actually alert them to come in and look at the information, maybe on their smartphone. We want to be able to drill down to root causes. We want to prompt for analysis, and we want to be able to have them be able to make adjustments either to the resources and the materials based upon the values that they see on these performance screens. So ultimately, real-time shop floor information gives you better visibility, and that leads to better decision-making processes. So let's drill down into Oracle's solution. We figure that in order to get flawless execution, you really need this real-time visibility. So over the past 5 years, we've been developing a manufacturing strategy that really allows you to have automation in your facilities, have real-time visibility, no matter where you are in a manufacturing curve. So on the left-hand side, you see the current manufacturing solution. When people have an ERP solution, they typically have paper batch records. They're very material-centric, collecting data about their materials, not necessarily resources, not necessarily in an automated fashion. And as a result, the data has a lag associated with it. And many companies are there, and at least they're collecting data automatically into a system, and they can do some minimal amount of reporting and analysis of their data. However, companies that are ready to move to the next stage of the manufacturing process can use either of the other two options. One would be layering on an MOS, an MES solution on top of their existing manufacturing solution, or adding in capability like Endeca to improve the visibility of the shop floor. So these systems would provide real-time information such as inline instructions, access to standard operating procedures, dispensing information, being able to report nonconformances on a real-time basis, electronic master batch records and control batch records, access to mobile devices, labeling, and device integration. So these are tools from Oracle that allow you to have greater ability to have access to the records on your shop floor. This is really key in a kind of a low-medium shop floor automation scenario. So that's one option. And then the second option would be maybe somebody who already has an existing MES solution but wants to be able to have additional visibility to the data that's coming out of that equipment. So this would be the ability to go ahead and link a tool like MOC, or Manufacturing Operations Center, to an MES device, which is then integrated to third-party devices on the shop floor. So we'll talk a little bit about this scenario as well. So you have the most basic, where you have our ERP manufacturing, either process, discrete, flow, or OSFM, layered on capabilities of MES, MOC, or Endeca, those solutions, or this integration to a third-party package through MOC. Now, across all of these, there's the capability of having manufacturing business intelligence, or kind of the rear view mirror look at what's going on the shop floor. So what we're talking about here is a capability that we're coining analytics-driven manufacturing. And you see we have these multiple parts, the real-time transactions, the manufacturing analytics, the Endeca capability, the ability to pull in equipment actuals through MOC. They're all components of this effective solution. And what we like to feel is that the whole is greater than the sum of all the parts, meaning that you really would want to go ahead and use each one of these on your shop floor to give you a full perspective of what's going on in your manufacturing operations. So the first thing we'll take a look at is how you can actually collect real-time MES transactions using the MES systems that Oracle has. So with Release 12.0, we implemented two products, one MES for discrete manufacturing and the second MES for process manufacturing. And our goal here was to provide customers with the capability of real-time shop floor visibility, but rather than having to use a third-party solution, we provided tools that are native to Oracle. And the idea here was that we would reduce the total cost of ownership and the complexity that's required to go ahead and integrate to these third-party solutions. So the first system we'll look at is the MES for discrete. And basically there's two components to this. There's a component for the operator to be able to work from a dispatch list, to be able to record transactions, quality results, work completion, and the amount of time it took to perform a task, as well as view real-time the work instructions, be guided what the next step of their manufacturing process is. They have the capability to record production exceptions, and there's also skills certification, which allows them to, when they clock into an operation, and make sure they have the proper skills to perform that operation. So that's all available to the operator. The supervisor has the capability of reviewing and resolving any exceptions or deviations that occur in the manufacturing process, as well as monitor the shop floor progress. Now on the process side, very similar types of capability as far as guiding the operator through the manufacturing process, but there's an additional capability for dispensing. This allows the operator to go ahead and take materials either from the warehouse or from a dispensing location like a clean room and weigh those out, and then have those materials go on to a production batch. So that's an additional capability specific to process industries. Also unique to process industries, if you think about a process industry like a food or a beverage plant or a pharmaceutical plant, you have to do a lot of wash down and cleanup. And so therefore we've enabled a lot of the screens to be touch screens, so that people can operate them wearing gloves or glasses, goggles, and kind of clean room equipment. We also have capabilities of having operations recorded similar to discrete, and then also the operator skills certification is also available in process. So it's just kind of different flavors because of the nuances between process and discrete manufacturing industries. So looking at the MES workstation for discrete in a little bit more detail, there's various tasks that an operator or administrator would need to go through, followed by a supervisor, and then actually the production operator. So there's some setup screens and parameters that can vary by an organization or a department if need be. The supervisor then would go through a flow where he would go ahead and release the work orders for execution. The operator would then pull up a screen, and he'd be guided by the dispatch list through every step of the manufacturing process, what values he would need to enter from a material or equipment serialization perspective. Then the operator would record the status and any manufacturing exceptions. Those would go right on to the department supervisor for immediate action to resolve any of those exceptions. And then the job can continue forward. So all the data would be there on that real-time basis, being able to proactively modify the job if there were any quality issues or exceptions that needed to be handled. This is an example of the workstation. It's very intuitive. The operator would go ahead and log in with his badge number perhaps. He would then identify the jobs that he needs to be working on as he goes through the process. They would be ticked off as far as that they're completed and then be removed from the screen. He has the ability to look at various actions that are available to him, such as reporting the time or the scrap or clocking out of that operation. He can also look at additional instructions in either a video format or a text format, and then he can also look at other employees that are working on that job. So all the information is really available to him at his fingertips to be able to complete each one of those operations. From a supervisory perspective, all the information is available just a click away, so they can resolve any exceptions that occur in the manufacturing process, expedite orders, reorder dispatch lists, report the resource usage, and then review any of the transactions that the operators have input into the system. So really very quick, user-friendly access to anything that's occurring on the shop floor. From an OPM perspective, very kind of similar process where the operators would go in, process engineer would take a recipe, add in all of the touch points for an operator, such as when they need to collect quality information, any of the ingredient information, or the yield of the product, as well as any resource information. This would all be collated into a master batch record. The job would be scheduled. The production supervisor would go ahead and release it for manufacturing, and then we would go through that additional dispensing step to go ahead and dispense those ingredients out. Those ingredients would then be brought to the shop floor. The operator would go through the task list, execute all the tasks on a required basis or an optional basis, depending on how they had been set up by the process engineer. And then ultimately, the batch would be reviewed by the supervisor, signed off if it has to be in an electronic format, and then closed and become part of an evidence store that the batch has been completed in this fashion. We also have the capability of integrating to process manufacturing equipment or scales as part of the MES solution as well. Now these are examples of the process screens. These are the screens that are available for a workstation as opposed to the ones that are touch screens. And from here you can view the real-time status of a production batch and which one of the instructions have been completed. You can see that the operator is guided through each step of the manufacturing process, and all those transactions are just kind of one click away. So being able to capture quality, resource, or material, they don't have to drill through multiple forms. They can just go in, enter the data, or collect the data from a piece of equipment and then pull that forward. These screens depict what occurs during the dispensing process. So materials would be moved to a scale. That scale value would be captured into the dispensing screen, and then the material could be containerized, labeled, and then that would move on to the production process. This upper screen here gives you the scheduling for the clean rooms or the dispensing booths in the manufacturing facility, and a supervisor could go ahead and level out those lines based on the capacity that they see on a given day of the shop floor process. Lastly, in process manufacturing, there's a requirement for electronic batch records. We support a standard format for electronic batch records, which are modifiable by our customers. So typical data that's included on electronic batch record is the material ingredient information, the lot information, the resources, any deviations that occurred, the samples that were associated with the batch, any labeling information, processing information, and electronic signatures. So all of these can be created and retained in a PDF format, and it's stored in a separate repository. The customers use electronic records to go ahead and capture the information, sign off on it, and then it becomes part of the electronic records evidence store. So with the electronic records, you have the transactional system, and then you have a separate evidence store database. So two separate solutions for storing batch information. Another component of moving to a modern shop floor is implementing mobile supply chain transactions. These are transactions that can be collected either through barcode readers or automated equipment transactions. And here are just some of the examples that we have of transactions that can be captured via these mobile devices. And so things like reservations, material issues, returns or creations, pending lots or lot information, and product and byproduct yields or completions. On the discrete manufacturing side, things like moves, issues, returns, scraps, and completions, quality collection information, deviations, specifications and rework, And then also a whole series of other resource transactions and LPN transactions. All can be captured through mobile supply chain devices. So that's kind of one step, and it's pretty basic, and we've had mobile supply chain applications for a long time associated with both process and discrete manufacturing. So now where we're going in the future, though, is to be able to go ahead and automate these applications on a smartphone. And so we are currently working to make these available in both an iOS format and an Android format. And the ones that are applicable to manufacturing directly are the shop floor supervisor for both process and discrete, the shop floor operator for process and discrete, and we're also planning to build out applications for tablets as well. So that's kind of our future direction, and you should be looking for within the next year some of these applications to be coming out. Currently available for smartphones are mobile field service and also expenses. So you can go ahead and download those for your iOS device or your Android at this time. This screen really kind of depicts the direction that we're taking for a manufacturing supervisor, and these will be changing as our designs evolve. But to just give you a flavor for what they might look like, you might be able to go in and quickly review the work orders that need attention, the ones that are starting today or completing today, that might be on hold or delayed or have exceptions associated with them. You could drill down into that a little bit further and look at a list of those jobs that have a problem. And then you could go ahead and quickly act on those. You'd have the capability to expedite them or cancel it or unrelease or release, depending on what you need to do next. And then you could always drill into more details and kind of figure out what's going on with the jobs. So we don't want to really replace the desktop with these applications. We want to perform transactions that you could do if you were walking around or at lunch or something, and you just kind of look down at your screen, performed an action, and then could kind of move on to the next task. Similar transactions on the process side where we could review the batches that require attention. We could also do things like release or reschedule, like whole batch transactions associated with it, or do completions. So these are just some of the thoughts of the directions that we're going to be taking our mobile transactions. Also some capabilities for project manufacturing, being able to go ahead and transfer between projects, to be able to update various projects as well. So those are some of the tools that we have to go ahead and perform real-time transactions in our facilities. The next thing we'll take a look at is some tools for better decision making, to be able to go ahead and look and see on a real-time basis the analytics that are occurring in our manufacturing facility. So we'll look at an MES supervisory dashboard, manufacturing analytics, which is kind of that rear view look of the batches or the jobs, what has historically happened in our manufacturing process. We'll look at Endeca, which is a new tool that gives us real-time operational statistics, so we can go ahead and see exactly what's going on in our plants right now. And then Manufacturing Operations Center, which is another tool which allows us to capture data off of a machine, look at the production metrics and contextualize that information in order to monitor our shop floor equipment. So the first thing we'll take a look at is Endeca. So with Endeca, what we'll be looking at is rather than the traditional method of I want to work on a particular work order today and then going into a menu, querying up a form, updating the form, and measuring it, what we'll be looking at is I need to work on what critical challenges today. And so I'll be presented with the information that is most important to me to fix on the shop floor. So let's see what that really means. So Endeca is a kind of a new tool stack that we have that we've gone ahead and expanded out to really provide our shop floor with real-time operational statistics. So it allows our operators and our supervisors to go ahead and search the system to find out what jobs are problematic, or where we have material shortages, where we have resources that are being used over capacity. So, and ultimately that'll help us improve our productivity in our manufacturing processes. And DEC is a new tool stack that we've extended out and has capabilities like advanced search, being able to look at all the data in our manufacturing facility that we're using right now. We can go ahead and do type ahead, so we can put in a partial description of something and it'll pull up all the records that match that. It also allows us to look at unstructured data as part of this manufacturing process. I can also look at the contextual information, being able to go ahead and look at things that are valid. So it'll go ahead and parse out the records that meet my criteria. And it's very visual. You can see I have graphics, I have tabs, I can look at key metrics, there's also tag cloud information. So it really allows me to explore what's going on in my plant, maybe when I don't even know I have a problem. So currently we've got 4 sets of solutions for Indecit on the manufacturing area. So we have basic operational information in discrete project manufacturing and process execution, allowing me to view what's going on in my operations and improve productivity. I also have a tool that allows me to look at cost management for both process and discrete, optimizing my period close process by analyzing what transactions haven't been updated and what remains left in that operating period before I can start the close process. I can look at quality information from a quality results perspective, but then also from a laboratory performance perspective. Are the samples that I have in my lab getting completed on a timely basis? And lastly, I can go ahead and review my outsourced manufacturing partner status, being able to see where they have delays, where they're not providing me with sufficient information from a quality perspective. What invoices or financial burdens do I have? So there's some examples of all of these systems available on YouTube, and there's a link to that video on the lower half of the screen. This is an example of the MES Supervisor workbench, and you can see at the top there's an area where we can view the production metrics, so we can see highlighted in yellow and red where we might have problems on the shop floor that we would want to go ahead and try to go in and fix. In the tag cloud area, we get a better idea of what those problems might be. So we can see that maybe we have component shortages or resource shortages on the shop floor. This guided navigation allows me to go in and go ahead and search for a particular job or batch or a particular material that I might think is problematic. And so by typing in the search criteria, I can go ahead and change the data that appears on these screens. And then I also can filter for date, range, or numeric values. The lower half of the screen shows me all the detailed information associated with the graphs in the middle portion of the screen. So very easy to use, very intuitive view of what's going on my shop floor. The next area that I'm going to look at is my Manufacturing Operations Center. So this is the solution where if you already have an MES solution in your facility, you might want to go ahead and look at this to collect data into a repository and then analyze that information. It's also the tool if you want to go ahead and integrate equipment directly to a data hub. You can go ahead and do that as well with this solution. The Manufacturing Operations Center works off of a data model as the kind of hub, and this is built on S95, which is the data model that works for ERP solutions talking to MES solutions. And what we'll be doing is collecting data into this data model, either through the MES data historians, or directly from the shop floor devices like PLCs, CNC machines, SCADA solutions, or process control devices. So all that data would be combined into this data model. And then what we would do is contextualize that information with the data that's coming in from the ERP solutions. So the production schedule, the quality information, the cost management information all gets pulled into this one repository. And on top of that contextualized information, we've layered in role-based dashboards. And these dashboards then allow me to look at plant-specific KPIs. So being able to look at operational efficiency or production line performance or equipment metrics. So no matter who I am in this facility, I could have a view of the information that's relevant to me. Now the key thing here is that this varies from corporate BI or that manufacturing intelligence that I spoke about earlier, because this is real-time information. The corporate BI is kind of that rear view or historical look of the data. And both are important, and that's why we say, you know, the various component parts are more than the sum of the whole. So this is an example of what we mean by role-based dashboards and KPIs. They're specifically built for manufacturing. So there's actually 3 types available: one for process, one for discrete, and one for maintenance. They're very graphical. You can see trend charts, graphs, table analysis, and if you don't like the way we've constructed them, you have the ability through OBIEE Plus, which is Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition, to make your own modifications. So if you have a need to perform a calculation differently than the way we've constructed it, you can just go in and configure it and make it your own, customize it to whatever your requirements are. There's also analytic workflows available, so you can send a notification to somebody to take a look at this graph or to perform an action based on the information that you're seeing. So we have total complete support for OEE, the operational equipment efficiencies, so you can monitor it. You can go ahead and see, you know, maybe which department is underperforming, what's causing the low EE. Is it downtime? Is it low efficiency in the process? Or are you having yield problems, maybe due to high scrap? So all that information is readily available to you. We can also look at production loss analysis, so we can look at things like equipment time or downtime, where the losses might be occurring on a particular shift, and maybe one shift is causing more losses than another. We can also look at attributes. This is something that's relatively new, but we can use extensible attributes to capture things like process parameters that are coming from equipment, various items and work orders, or any user-defined entity. So MOC is the capture of the analytics and equipment actuals on a real-time basis, very similar to Endeca. And now we'll go ahead and just switch gears a little bit and look at the manufacturing analytics, or what we typically think of as BI, or business intelligence. So our manufacturing analytics are available in a workstation format, but also available in a tablet format. So they're both Exalytics and BI mobile certified. And what these analytics do is they provide an integrated view of our manufacturing execution, quality, and planning. So we can go ahead and compare our execution to our projected plan and identify where we're having performance issues. There's also summary level KPIs with drill down into the forms that are resulting in those KPIs. And we also have cross-functional analysis across the supply chain, so cross-order management, procurement, spend, and financial analytics. And as I said earlier, the goal here is to look at historical trends against those target values as opposed to kind of the real time that we see in Endeca and the MOC, the Manufacturing Operations Center product. So examples of these manufacturing analytics are things like plan to produce, manufacturing execution, process manufacturing, manufacturing quality, production costing, and inventory. And there's a whole series of various reports for each one of these areas, looking at past due work orders, scrap summaries and rework, formulation yields, variances for the formulas, quality results, non-conformances, cost trend analysis, and inventory aging. So really, just really anything that you really need to look at on a historical basis in your manufacturing facilities. But the key thing is that that information needs to be in the system and it needs to be accurate. So there's a lot of value for collecting that real-time data for materials as well as equipment early on in the process. This is just an example of some of the business questions that are supported by using manufacturing analytics. So how much of the production backlog is past due? What are we tracking as far as our monthly production targets? Are our inventory levels appropriate? Are we producing the plan? Do we have the desired quality? All key issues that are of concern to manufacturing executives. So that really gives you kind of a view of what we've done over the last few years to support manufacturing and modernize manufacturing in our customer facilities. This is now our current roadmap. We just released 12.2 back in September of last year, and that's where we introduced our e-business suite extensions for the Endeca product. We also did a series of customer-driven enhancements during that time period, supporting things like serialized manufacturing, some additional enhancements in clocking in and clocking out in MES, contingent worker support for discrete manufacturing, and Kanban support across the board, where in the past it was only available for flow manufacturing. Now it's available for all manufacturing methods. Some enhancements to our MOC, and some new products were introduced for outsourced manufacturing, as well as additional capabilities for cost management and being able to simulate costs for both process and discrete manufacturing. What's coming up next is additional capabilities for Endeca. These have been recently introduced into the market. Remember, this was originally presented back in April of 2014, so some of these are already available, these Endeca solutions. But we have mobile and smartphone apps that we have on the plate for coming out in the next 12 months. Some additional capabilities around MOC. Some additional usability capabilities, and outsourced manufacturing for process industries coming out in the next 12 months. And then where do we go in the future? We're looking at some extensions for Endeca for Oracle shop floor management, and some enhancements across those existing Endeca products. Continuing to build out smartphone apps. We said we were going to originally start with production and supervisor apps, the supervisor and the operator, but then we'll move on to quality, maybe looking at electronic signature applications going forward as well. We'll also work with our customers and our field to prioritize customer-driven and field-driven enhancements. Some things that we're thinking about are maybe time and labor integration and additional capabilities in our MES products. And another capability we're thinking of building out is some yield management capabilities. Being able to really analyze in multidimensional fashion what's going on in the plant and try to develop a correlation. If this one thing happens, does it cause a problem somewhere else? So we'll be looking at various tools, predictive analytics, to find out what's going on in manufacturing. So with that, I'll just wrap up. One of our focus over the last 5 years has been analytics-driven manufacturing, tools that allow you to see rapid results in your plant, to be able to accelerate things like Lean and Six Sigma initiatives to drive operational excellence, to deliver quick value. To some of these solutions, like Endeca, can be implemented in a matter of weeks, not in a matter of years. So really value delivered immediately to your shop floor. They all work with your Oracle backend solution, so very limited requirements for integration and very easy to launch. We have partners that are readily trained on these solutions. With that, I think I'll just sign off for today. Thank you for joining me, and please stay tuned for more progress in this whole exciting area of analytics-driven manufacturing.